Greetings and salutations everyone, I'm Mac. This is another introspective on a character class from Star Wars The Old Republic, specifically the Jedi Sage, and we're starting things out a bit differently today. I want to talk about a few of the other mechanics in this game, specifically crafting, or more accurately, how you don't do any crafting yourself. Basically, for most characters, you have crew skills, and these sort of work. Basically, your companions aren't just there to be pets to make your fighting better. Like, they can be healers or tanks or DPS. The companions you aren't using, and you do actually get quite a few companions if you look at the scroll bar here. Well, companions off-duty can be sent out on missions or crafting to do things, so they aren't just sitting around doing nothing. So let's go over some of these crew skills right now. There are three types: gathering, mission, and crafting. Over here we have all the gathering trainers. Archaeology is basically collecting relics or force crystals from around the world. It's useful in basically anything that you expect to work with a lightsaber. Bioanalysis is very niche. It has one specific crafting thing for it, but it also has an interesting advantage that not only can you gather from nodes you find around the world, but if you defeat an enemy alien monster, if it's strong or is stronger, then you can also gather straight from the body to collect some more materials. Likewise, scavenging can be done so for robots, and it's actually in very high demand. Slicing is weird. Around the world you'll find credit caches that you can use to get extra money, so it's useful if you just want the extra credits and don't really care about your crafting set. But there are certain materials that require the slicing specific tech parts. But the thing is, you can't get tech parts in the overworld. You have to get them via missions. Because you don't just get them from missions. You can also send them out specifically for the item. And in fact, certain crafting materials for archaeology, it's cloths and such. You can't get them in the overworld either. You either have to get them from quests, or find them from guild trade vendors. And the thing is, usually you can't get all of them. If we sort by price here, it only goes up to grade 10.
Appreciate your business.
But you'll find that a lot of recipes will require grade 11. So you are going to have to use the crew skill missions to get the full set of materials that you need. If we go over here, we can look at another type of crew skill. These are missions. So they yield more uncommon materials used for building the more complex parts of your crafting. There are also 4 types. Starting from the right, we have Underworld Trading. This is in very high demand. But there's way too many things, to be fair, that require the underworld metals, which you get from here. And then there's the very niche luxury fabrics, which you also get from here. Next to that we have treasure hunting. This is only useful for one specific crafting type, but it also can yield lockboxes. I'm not the biggest fan of lockboxes, to be honest. Next to that is another niche one, investigation. This is just for research compounds, to be honest. So that's another one that only a single crafting type can do. And diplomacy, I don't like diplomacy. So way back at the start of the game, diplomacy was one where you could farm for light side points or dark side points. The problem is that eventually they sort of made it, okay, whether you're light side or dark side is selected by clicking this button here. You still get the big moral choices in the overworld, but for the most part, anything you do is going to tip you towards one side or the other. Like, look here. We're getting light side and dark side points just by running these missions. The thing is, the dark side diplomacy missions are still marked as light side, and they will swing your alignment back and forth. It's annoying. Now, all that said, the local area doesn't have the crafting trainers. We have to do a bit of backtracking. They're all much closer together and easier to work with if you go to the Republic or Imperial Fleet, but that's also where everyone hangs out in general, and I want a less obnoxious, less busy place to talk this over. Fortunately, we do have crafters on this planet. It's just that they all hang out in the station. So, here we have all our crafters, and Kaizen is away, so whoops. Hopefully he'll be back when we get to the actual fighting. Armor Mech. Specifically, it used to be for the technology-based classes, the armor sets for them. But then things happened to the game's main stats, and now it doesn't really matter. It's just Armor Mech is, however, a way of getting armoring mods. We'll get to that later. Arms Tech is specifically all the technology-based weaponry. So, guns, knives, scatterguns, things like that. They also give barrels. Artifice is what this character is currently trained in. This is creating color crystals, which change the color of your lightsabers or blaster attacks, dye modules, which you can apply to your clothes. You can make basic lightsabers if you just need if you need to upgrade your equipment immediately, which is something I should probably do, but I won't because busy. Relics. These are a weird type of offhand, and they have all sorts of effects. Some of them are random chance procs for things like giving extra healing, or a defensive boost, or they might be ones that you click immediately to get an outright buff for a certain amount of time with a cooldown, so they give you extra defensive or offensive cooldowns, and some of them are just raw stat boosts. Although granted, I don't see those too often. And then they also have the interesting offhands. Things like shields, focuses, and generators. Most of them we haven't seen. And they can also be used to craft lightsaber hilts. Biochem is the only thing that... let's go... I should go back after I finish this. Biochem is for creating med packs, which are in-battle healing items, stimulants, and adrenals. Stimulants are long-term buffs that go for about 60 seconds, so they add on top of your class buffs. I never use them, but that's because I'm a pack rat. They also create implants, which are a type of equipment that go right here. I get the feeling that there's more to it that I'm not thinking of, but I'll just put up on screen if I've forgotten. Over here we have the other two classes. Crafters, I mean. Cybertech is used to craft the earpiece, which is an important piece of gear. They're also used for building modifications and enhancements. We'll get into those in a later episode. And they also create ship parts for specialty battles. But that's a very much forgotten part of the game, so don't expect much from there. Finally, they create grenades, which are single-use attack items. There's something about Biochem and Cybertech that particularly annoys me. because at the start of the game, if you were in that profession, you could create reusable grenades, or reusable adrenals, or reusable medpacks, or really anything that was a one-time use. You could create a reusable version specifically for yourself. I wasn't the fondest of this because I thought, okay, but why does it have to be specifically to that profession? Why can't you just spread it out to everyone else? I was in the minority because the forums had the complete opposite opinion. Why the heck aren't we allowed to have multiples of a... Why the heck are these people allowed to have this advantage? They shouldn't have reusables. They should be single-time use only. And the majority won, and I'm still bitter about that. Maybe the idea is that it's supposed to create an eternal credit sink for the endgame players, but... The thing is, if you saw my mercenary video, you know that there's rail shot, which relies either a dot or a stun on the target. One of the grenades that you're able to create, and I was looking at the wrong person, is able to put a dot on the target. It's able to stun, one's able to slow, so the fact that she lost another way of sticking up a dot during a just casual play, that really got to me. Because I'm not going to waste all my time on constantly creating reusable grenades. My time and money is more precious than that. And finally we have Synth Weaving, which is basically the lightsaber class's version of the armor mech. There's nothing else interesting in that one at all. Now, from the top, armor mech requires scavenging and underworld trading. Scavenging for the metals and compounds, Underworld Trading for the underworld metals. Arms Tech requires scavenging and investigation. It's the only one to use researched compounds for its advanced equipment. Artifice requires treasure hunting and archaeology, because they need all the gems to craft all the stuff. Biochem requires bioanalysis, and it requires diplomacy, because diplomacy is the only way to get medical supplies. Cybertech requires scavenging and underworld trading, because it also needs the underworld metals. And finally, Synth Weaving requires archaeology and underworld trading, because it's the only way to get luxury fabrics that it needs. So in the end, scavenging takes up half of the crafting classes, and underworld trading takes up half of the crafting classes. But I need to also add that slicing is technically for nothing and everything, because once you get to the end game, there's a little bonus that requires you to have sliced tech parts, and slicing is where you get it from. Anyway, all that said, we're here to talk about the class, so let's get to it. The Jedi Sage is an advanced class of the Jedi Consular. Its mirror is the Sith Sorcerer, and its alternate class is the Jedi Shadow. Thank you, Kaizen Fest, for the Trofella cloth. You're doing me proud. The operation. The thing is, the Jedi classes both share the same personal starship, and the Sith classes share the same personal starship. So even though each class has their own starship, yeah, the lack of originality there kind of bums me out. But all that said, all consular classes use a lightsaber main hand and a focus offhand. If you went into Jedi Shadow, you'd have a double-bladed lightsaber, but as it is, as a Jedi Sage, you're just going to always have a lightsaber and focus combo. You're also a light armor class, so be wary. You don't get the extra armor rating that the Shadow did. Let's start from the top. Saber Strike is the only attack you have that uses the lightsaber. This is a stat stick, nothing more. You are a caster. Your main cast is Disturbance. It takes a full global cooldown. Basically, very much a spammable ability. The global cooldown is equal to the cast time. And actually, I should point out, like the Assassin in the Shadow, you rely on Force. But unlike them, you have 600 cap on your Force. So rather than having a slightly faster regeneration time, or regenerating it from hitting the enemy with your saber, you just have a very large pool to draw from. Some of these abilities are going to sound very familiar. Project. Throw debris at the target, dealing kinetic damage. Standard and weak targets are additionally stunned for 0.5 seconds. Telekinetic Throw. Deal kinetic damage to the target and consume 40 force over the duration of the channel. Slows the movement speed of the target and immobilizes weak and standard enemies. Force Wave. Deal kinetic damage, knock back up to 8 enemies within a 15-meter cone in front of you. Standard and weak enemies are additionally knocked down for 3 seconds. Force Stun. Deal kinetic damage. Stun the target for 4 seconds. Force Potency. Grant 2 charges of Force Potency, increasing the Force critical of your direct attacks and heals by 60%. Each time a direct force ability critically hits, or you activate a channeled ability, 1 charge is consumed. It lasts 20 seconds. So yeah, we ran out. Force of Will. Demonstrate Force of Will, purge all incapacitating and movement impairing effects. Force Valor. Increase the target's mastery by 5% and internal and elemental damage reduction by 10% for 60 minutes. If target is a group member, all other group members are also affected. So this is Mark of Power from the Inquisitor. We have Quick Travel, and we have Meditation, or Out of Combat Heal. Over here we have Force Armor. Surround the target in Force Shield that absorbs damage and lasts up to 30 seconds. The target becomes Force imbalanced and cannot benefit from Force Armor again for 20 seconds. So this is basically an absorb barrier. Force Slow. Deal kinetic damage and slow the target's movement speed by 50% for 6 seconds. Rejuvenate. Heal the target and then heal over time over 9 seconds. Mind Crush. Keep in mind that the activation time is a bit higher than the global cooldown, so this is not quite the best thing to just keep spamming, but oh well. It has a cooldown, you can't spam it anyway. Crush the target's mind with a force, instantly dealing kinetic damage and another additional kinetic damage over 6 seconds. Weaken Mind. Weaken the target's mind, dealing internal damage over 18 seconds. Benevolence. Heal a friendly target. Force Speed. Increase movement speed by 150% for 2 seconds. It does not break stealth. Not that we have stealth in this class, but that's important for if you go the other way. Mind Snap is an interrupt. Interrupt the current action, prevent ability from being used for 4 seconds. Force Lift. Now, take careful note of this, because this is like Whirlwind, but different. Lift the target helplessly into the air, preventing all action for up to 60 seconds. Non-player, non-standard, and non-weak targets heal rapidly while out of harm's way. Damage will break the effect prematurely. So, by going into Jedi Sage, and we're going to see this in passives, rather than getting our 60-second control while in stealth, we simply have a 8-second control jump all the way up to the cast time. Although granted, the cooldown is slightly below 60 seconds because we have Alacrity. That's the other thing Alacrity does, it reduces cooldown time. Force Quake. Just look at that area of effect. Channel the force into the ground at the target location, causing it to quake and tremble, consuming 60 force and dealing energy damage to up to 8 targets within 8 meters over the duration of the channel. Standard and weak targets have a 33% chance to be stunned by Force Quake each second. So this is a very spammable wide-range AoE. The downside is that it's not very powerful. But still, it looks pretty cool. Over here, we have our way of getting all our force back. Vindicate. Call upon the light energy surrounding you, restoring 40 force. Utilizing Vindicate makes you weary, reducing force regeneration by 2%. This can stack up to... here. 4 times. So that's an 8% loss in total. It lasts 10 seconds. It's useless to the DPS classes, but you're going to see it have some more use when you get to the healing spec. Rescue. Lower the target's threat by a moderate amount. If the target is a group member, pull them to your location. It's useful at least. Force Mend. Immediately restore health to you. It cannot be used on others. It's specifically a self-heal. And okay, I need to go back and talk about Vindicate. Originally it had a health loss effect tied to it as well, but PvP complaining got it changed, and I don't know, I liked the health loss effect for the flavor, but I don't know, this is the most fragile class since it's light armor and clearly not to be in melee, but I don't like it when flavor is lost because people whine. Cloud Mind is your threat drop. Not very important there. Phase Walk is an interesting bit of utility, but it's just utility. Marks your current location for 10 minutes. When this ability is activated again, if you're within 10 meters of the... Wait, no, it's either 60 or 80, and I'm going to have to move the interface a bit to figure it out. If you are within 60 meters of the marked location, you immediately return to it. This puts it on cooldown for 60 seconds. Yeah, it's an interesting enough effect. It has utility. It's not going to see much use in the common occurrences. Anyhow, Force Empowerment. Increase mastery, endurance, and presence for you and operation members within 40 meters by 10%. It lasts 10 seconds. When used, you are drained. You are unable to regain force empowerment or unlimited power. So yeah, they make sure that you aren't able to spam or link it together with other sages or sorcerers. Revival. Revive an incapacitated ally. You can use it in combat, but then group members can't use or be the target of in-combat revival for the next 5 minutes. Mental Alacrity is something I should use more often, but just never do. It grants 20% Alacrity and immunity to pushbacks and interrupts for 10 seconds. So suddenly, 1.9 becomes 1.3, and we're hitting things much faster. I should use it more often, I just never think to, probably because I put it off in the corner all the way over there. Telekinetic Blitz. Note, it doesn't have a cast time. Deal kinetic damage to the target and leaves you feeling empowered for up to 5 seconds. The empowered effect can stack twice, each stack increasing Telekinetic Blitz damage by 30%. You get 3 charges, it recharges every 10 seconds. I get the feeling that when you compare it with all your other basic abilities, It's pretty weak damage. The advantage is that you can move about while using it, because like 45 force versus 36, it's also expensive. And last but not least, we have Restoration. Cleanse a friendly target of up to 2 negative mental or force effects. So in other healers we had the problem of we can never get rid of tech. With the Jedi Sage we have the problem of never being with the other two we have the problem of never getting rid of force. With the Sage we have the problem of never getting rid of tech. Anyway, now that we've gone over the basics, let's see. No, actually no, we need to show this. Because there will be passives. Except not here because Jedi Consular. Alright, so Force Reach. Increase the range of Project, Mind Snap, Force Imbalance, and Force Slow by 20 meters. Increases the duration of Force Lift to 60. Force Studies. Attuned to the Force, your maximum force is increased by 500. Inner Strength. Reduce the force consumed by force abilities by 10%. Jedi Healer. Reduce the cooldown of Revive by 100%. And yeah, we don't have anything else to show off here. Let's get into disciplines. Balance. This is going to sound very familiar. Force Imbalance. Deal internal damage and redistribute life from affected targets to heal you for 10% of damage dealt. Strikes up to 8 targets within a 5-meter radius. Telekinetic Balance. Telekinetic Throw no longer has a cooldown. In addition, your Rejuvenate increases your armor rating by 30% while it heals you. Reduce the pushback suffered while activating Force Serenity by 75% and Telekinetic Throw by 100%. In addition, each time your Telekinetic Throw deals damage, you recover 2% of your total force. Force Imbalance now suppresses resistance to the Force, increasing the amount of damage the targets suffer from your next 15 periodic damaging abilities by 15%. It lasts 30 seconds. Presence of Mind. Dealing damage with Telekinetic Throw produces a stack of Presence of Mind. At 4 stacks, Presence of Mind causes your next Disturbance, Mind Crush, or Vanquish to activate instantly, consuming 50% less force and dealing 25% more damage. Severe Force, or Sever Force. Weaken the target, freezing it in place for 2 seconds and dealing internal damage over 18 seconds. The immobilizing effect cannot occur more than once every 9 seconds. Abundant Justice. Force Imbalance spreads your weakened mind and severe force to the target it damages, as long as it damages targets already affected by those effects. In addition, Force Imbalance overwhelms targets so they take more damage from area attacks. Critical Kinesis. Increases the critical chance of Force Serenity and Disturbance by 15%. Drain Thoughts. Increasing all periodic damage dealt by 15%. Rippling Force. Damage dealt by Telekinetic Throw has a 20% chance, while damage dealt by Force Serenity has a 60% chance to restore 2 force and deal extra kinetic damage to the target. Force Serenity at level 42. Redistribute life from an enemy, dealing internal damage to the target and healing you for 50% of damage dealt. Mind Warp. Increase the duration of Mind Crush and Vanquish by 3 seconds. Mental Scarring. Increase damage dealt by periodic effects by 15% on targets below 30% of maximum health. In addition, Force Serenity restores 15 force when used on a target affected by your force suppression. Focus Insight. Increase the life stolen by Force Imbalance and Force Serenity by 100%. Cause weak mind and severe force to reclaim life from enemy targets, healing you for 10% of the damage they deal. Psychic Projection. Telekinetic Throw channels and ticks 33% faster, but it deals 25% less damage. Vanquish replaces Mind Crush. Vanquishes the target with Mighty Force, dealing kinetic damage initially, plus an additional kinetic damage over 6 seconds. The target also becomes vulnerable, increasing the damage they take from force attacks. Force Serenity deals 30% more damage when used on a target affected by Weakened Mind. In addition, each time a charge of Force Suppression is consumed, you gain Force. Psychokinetic Current. Dealing damage with Telekinetic Throw increases the critical chance of your damaging periodic effects by 3% for 10 seconds. This stacks up to 4 times. And a single Telekinetic Throw will deal 4 lots of damage, so you'll get the full stack if you channel it the whole way. And finally, Resonant Pulse. Targets hit by Force and Balance have a 50% chance to emit a Resonant Pulse, damaging itself and up to 7 targets within 5 meters for internal damage. So even though you've got the problems with your dots, not having trouble getting them up before weak trash mobs die, Force and Balance is still going to be a pretty hard hitter, and yes, this is what is shared with Shadow. It's a dot class, what do you expect? Telekinetics. We start off with Telekinetic Wave. Send a wave of telekinetic energy that deals kinetic damage to up to 8 targets within 8 meters of the primary target. Tidal Force. Disturbance, Telekinetic Burst, Turbulence, and Force Quake grant Tidal Force when activated. Tidal Force immediately finishes the cooldown on Telekinetic Wave, this thing over here, and makes it activate instantly and consume 50% less force. So here's the thing, it has a long activation time, so it's definitely nice to get an instant activation on it, but you can't get the effect more than once every 10 seconds. Resonating Vibrations increase the critical damage of Force Quake by 15% and critical damage bonus by 30%. Telekinetic Effusion. Direct force attacks grant Telekinetic Effusion when critically hitting, reducing the force consumed by your next 2 non-channeled force attacks by 75%. Concentration. Reduces the pushback suffered when activating Telekinetic Wave, Disturbance, Mind Crush, Turbulence, and Telekinetic Burst by 75%. Additionally, when taking direct damage, you have a 25% chance to gain concentration, allowing your next Disturbance or Telekinetic Burst to activate instantly. This effect cannot occur more than once every 8 seconds and lasts up to 15 seconds. That's a lot of abilities that they had to shove in there. Turbulence. Deal internal damage to a single target. It automatically critically hits on targets affected by Weakened Mind. So this isn't a dot class, but it still likes having dots. Mind Crush makes its target vulnerable for 45 seconds and has a 25% chance to tick twice. Vulnerable targets take 5% more damage from force attacks, but in addition, when you activate Turbulence, there's a chance that the ability will produce a second blast that strikes the same target for 25% damage. Telekinetic Gust. Blast the target with a quick gust of force power, which deals kinetic damage and grants Force Gust, reducing the activation time of your next Mind Crush by 0.5 seconds. It lasts up to 12 seconds, and that's enough to push Mind Crush from longer than a global cooldown to exactly a global cooldown. Very important. Telekinetic Focal Point. Damage dealt by Telekinetic Wave and Telekinetic Gust have a 100% chance, whereas damage dealt by Disturbance and Telekinetic Burst have a 50% chance to grant Focal Telekinetics, which increases Alacrity by 1%, but it stacks up to 5 times and lasts 15 seconds. So you can expect a 5% Alacrity in this spec. Tremors. Each telekinetic momentum and mental momentum reduces the active cooldown of mental Alacrity by 1 second. In addition, being interrupted grants Unshakable for 4 seconds, but you can only get that once every 15 seconds. This is why I say I should use mental Alacrity more than I do. Reverberation. Increased critical damage dealt by Telekinetic Wave, Mind Crush, Turbulence, and Telekinetic Gust by 15%. Tremors. Each telekinetic momentum and mental... Wait, no. They read that. I didn't read this though. Telekinetic momentum is twice as likely to trigger while mental alacrity is active. Additionally, increase duration of mental alacrity by 5 seconds and reduce cooldown by 15 seconds. So, that's the... I have to find it again. 25% chance to get a second Telekinetic Blast for 25% damage. In addition, Telekinetic Wave overwhelms targets so they take extra area damage. Force Speed grants 2 stacks of Clamoring Force, which allows Disturbance and Telekinetic Burst to be activated instantly. In addition, while Force and Balance, your Force Armor... By Force Armor, your damage reduction is increased by 10%. So handy bit of defense boost for having Force Armor. I'm sorry that I skipped those. Yeah, I need to go back and read this as well. Increase the maximum range of your force attacks by 5 meters. Additionally, Telekinetic Wave immobilizes all affected targets for half a second and slows all affected targets by 50% for 6 seconds. Now then, where were we? Telekinetic Burst. Summon a burst of telekinetic power that deals kinetic damage and slows the target by 30% for 3 seconds. It replaces Disturbance. It is not the same thing as Telekinetic Blitz over here. So, actually Telekinetic Blitz gets a lot less support than you'd think if you made that mistake that I did. It's unfortunate. Mental Continuum. Direct damage by your Mind Crush and Telekinetic Wave refreshes the duration of weakened mind on affected targets. But also, Telekinetic Burst increases force regeneration rate by 10% for 10 seconds, and it stacks up to 3 times. So once every 10 seconds you need to throw in one of your Telekinetic Bursts. Telekinetic Refuge. Telekinetic Burst increases damage reduction by 5% for 10 seconds. It stacks up to 3 times. Again, you need to weave that in once every 10 seconds at least. Magnifying Vibrations is what caps it off. While a target is affected by Mind Crush, Project deals 35% more damage to them. And while Mental Alacrity is active, Mind Crush deals 10% more damage. So again, I need to use this more than I do. And finally, our utility in the Seer. The Heal spec. First of all, we get Deliverance. Heal a friendly target. Activation is quite long. Force cost of 45. And it sort of has this weird relationship with Benevolence, because Benevolence has a global cooldown cast time, but it's also more expensive and a weaker heal. Deliverance has a longer cast time, but it's cheaper. Foresight. Reduce the pushback suffered while activating healing abilities by 75%. Lower threat generated by 10%. Immutable Force. Reduce the activation time of Deliverance by 0.5 seconds and the force consumed by Benevolence by 5. So it's a little bit of balancing there. Conveyance. Now Rejuvenate has an interesting effect. It grants Conveyance, which increases the effect of your next healing ability. Freaking motorbikes. Okay, so the effects are: increases the crit chance of Benevolence, reduces the activation time of Deliverance, increases the crit chance of Healing Trance, Salvation activates instantly, Wandering Mend immediately wanders to and heals each target without waiting for the target to take damage first. So, a lot of the skills you learn in this branch are what Conveyance is going to boost. Preservation. Reduce the force consumed by Force Armor by 15, reduce the duration of Force and Balance by 5 seconds. Additionally, the amount of damage absorbed by Force Armor is increased by 10%. Healing Trance. Heal for quite a bit of health and consume 60 force over the channel duration. The thing is that it's also specifically 2 global cooldowns worth, so the thing is that it also has the crit chance with Conveyance, and that gets important later on. Healing Trance is something you're probably going to spam. Anyway, Mend Wounds. Restoration now removes negative physical effects and heals the target. So the only thing you can't get rid of is tech effects. Force Shelter. Increase the duration of Rejuvenate by 6 seconds. In addition, it grants protection to its target. Protected targets have their armor rating increased by 10%. Serenity. Increase force critical chance and damage reduction by 3%. Clairvoyance. Increase the crit chance of Benevolence by 10%. Salvation. Apply a periodic healing effect to up to 8 allies within 8 meters of the target, which heals for a certain amount of health over 10 seconds. Once the target has received the periodic healing effect, the target may leave the area and will be continued to be healed by it. An interesting heal puddle. Resplendence. Healing Trance critical heals grant a charge of Resplendence, stacking up to 3 times. Using Vindicate with Resplendence consumes a charge, restores 5 additional force, and does not make you weary. So you want to get as much Healing Trance if you want to keep your force in check. Healing Trance will crit. You use Vindicate to get your force back. You don't suffer the penalty of weary. Anyhow, next up is Altruism. Mind Crush, Disturbance, Deliverance, and Salvation grant Altruism, causing your next Benevolence to activate instantly, consume no force, and heal for 50% more. You can't get it more than once every 10 seconds. Benevolence is the one that you have by default, the expensive one. And now, Amnesty. Force Barrier now purges the weary effect by Vindicate. In addition, spending a charge of Resplendence on Vindicate grants Amnesty, increasing force regeneration rate by 2 for up to 10 seconds, if you are not weary, or remove a single stack of weary otherwise. The Amnesty effect will be lost if Vindicate is activated without a Resplendence. So this is an interesting thing in that it sort of means that the Sage Healer is actually able to get a bit better force regeneration than its counterparts, I guess? Maybe not. I can't remember now. But yeah, Force Barrier, this one here. Did I talk about it? It builds up to 4 charges for Enduring Bastion, which grants damage absorption per charge. Grants interrupts for up to 5 seconds after the channel ends, does not respect the global cooldown, can be used while controlled, but it also grants immunity to all negative, controlling, and damaging effects. It's a very important emergency panic button, but keep in mind that most AI is smarter than to go after you while it hits up, and the moment you click it, they'll immediately jump onto hitting something else. Anyway, with that out of the way, Renewal. 1 second after refreshing your Rejuvenate on a target, the target will be healed for a certain amount, plus any healing that remained from the previous Rejuvenate. And at level 58 we have Wandering Mend. Place a mending force on a friendly target that heals them the next time they take damage. After healing the target, it travels to another friendly target within 20 meters. It lasts up to 30 seconds on each target and travels up to 3 times, healing up to 4 targets. You can only have 1 healing mend at a time. It's a bit weird if we're honest. But it's a good emergency on the run party heal if you use it under your Rejuvenate conveyance. Force Warden. Healing trance channels and ticks 10% faster. Wandering Mend grants resistance to the target it heals for 45 seconds. Resistant targets have internal and elemental damage reduction increased by 3%, so it is useful if you're coming up against something that bypasses your basic armor. Rudite Mender. Increase the healing done by Rejuvenate and Renewal by 10%. And finally, Soothing Protection. Force Armor grants 10 charges of Soothing Protection to the target. Targets with Soothing Protection lose a charge of it each time you directly heal them. If Force Armor concludes early, the target is healed per remaining charge of Soothing Protection. So it's all a rather interesting mess. Now then, we swap back on the discipline so we can check out the utilities. Psychic's Effusion. Force Wave heals you and up to 7 affected allies. Jedi Resistance. Increased damage reduction by 3%. Tectonic Mastery. Increase the damage dealt by Force Quake by 25%. Pain Mirror. Increase all healing received by 5%, but it doesn't affect redistributed life. So that means that the healing from the dot isn't increased by this. Dot spec. Dizzying Force. Reduce target's accuracy by 20% for 8 seconds after Force Lift ends. Force Lift affects up to 2 additional standard or weak enemies within 8 meters of the target. Benevolence increases the movement speed of the target by 50% for 6 seconds. This effect can't occur more than once every 12 seconds. Reduce damage taken by all periodic effects by 15%. Reduce the cooldown of Force Stun by 10 seconds. Targets stunned by Force Stun deal 25% less damage after 10 seconds when Force Stun wears off. And honestly, we're about to get into a pretty nasty place, so we want damage reduction. In the masterful utilities, Block Out. Activating Cloud Mine grants Block Out, which increases damage reduction by 25% for 6 seconds. Now where was I? Block Out. Activating Cloud Mind grants Block Out, increasing damage reduction by 25% for 6 seconds. Valiance. Reduce the damage taken by the target of your rescue by 25% for 6 seconds after you rescue them. Additionally, increase the healing done by Force Mend by 30%. Confound. Targets affected by Weak Mind are slowed by 30% for its duration. That's kind of spammable. Your Force Armor reverberates with Force Energy, blasting attackers for energy damage when it absorbs direct damage to you. This effect does not affect Force Armors placed on allies, cannot occur more than once each second. Reduce the cooldown of Force Speed by 5 seconds, Force Slow by 3 seconds, and Force Barrier by 30 seconds. Additionally, Force Speed lasts half a second longer, Mental Alacrity increases movement speed by 100% while active, and the active cooldown of Force Speed is finished when Force Barrier ends. Kinetic Collapse. Force Armor erupts in a flash of light when it ends. Well, specifically the ones you place on yourself. It blinds enemies nearby for 3 seconds. It breaks from direct damage. Containment. If your Force Lift breaks early from the damage, your target is stunned for 2 seconds. Additionally, Force Lift activates instantly. And Force Wave unbalances its targets, mobilizing them for 5 seconds. Direct damage dealt after 2 seconds ends it prematurely. And finally, the heroic utilities. Force Speed grants Aggress, removing all movement impairing effects and granting immunity for the duration. Reduce all damage taken while stunned by 30% and damage taken from area effects by 30%. Turbulence, Healing Trance, and Force Serenity can be activated while moving if you pick Force Mobility. This one's actually kind of a favorite of mine. Swift Rejuvenation. Restoration grants Swift Rejuvenation, making your next ability with an activation time activate instantly. This effect can't occur more than once every 30 seconds and lasts up to 15 seconds. Restoration is your cleanse, so not something you're usually weaving into your rotation. Life Ward. Force Armor, Force Barrier, and Enduring Bastion heal you for 1% of your total health for every second as long as they last. This scales up to 4% with the charges for Enduring Bastion. Force Mend increases damage reduction by 15% for 6 seconds and reduces the cooldown of Force Mend by 5 seconds. Friggin' Mogodo bikes. Using Phase Walk to return to its marked location grants Ethereal Entity, keeping you from being leaped to or pulled, and making you immune to interrupts and ability activations pushback for the next 10 seconds. Additionally, the cooldown of Phase Walk is reduced by 15 seconds. All defenses are increased by 30% for the duration of Ethereal Entity. I guess that gives it a bit of utility if you're in a tight spot. And Impeding Slash. Unique in utilities, this is the only actually active attack. Lash the target with your lightsaber, dealing weapon damage and immobilizing it for 3 seconds. When the immobilization effect ends, the target is slowed by 50% for 6 seconds. It replaces Saber Strike. I never take this, but I think I will at least today. So, with all that said, we want to go to Morikron. Except we're part of Makeb. I could go over to the cockpit over there and send the ship to Morikron. What I actually have is a priority transport there. So I can just click this and after 6 seconds, boom, I teleport straight there. A lot of aside from the emergency fleet pass, you actually have to pay credits to unlock the priority passes. But that said, they're still useful because most of them are for places that you go on a regular basis. Anyhow, time to show what this class is like in an actual fight. But first, I need to move these to places that are easier for me to get at. Other way around. So, I'm probably going to I have tried this off the screen. I'm still not very good at it, but let's try it anyway. We force lift you, so we have to take less at a time. Right. AoE effects. It disturbed his force lift. I see someone over there, that's a boss. We might as well get into a fight with him. but under the knowledge that we still need to show what it's like in a better multi-target fight, we need to get that off of Kaizen immediately. Except for some reason it didn't work. He did not like me immobilizing him, I think. So much stun locking, please stop! Okay, we can use Restoration to get Kaizen back in the fight. Right, we do have our Condotion friend to help us with healing and tanking. Honestly, I think I prefer the Project Storm because it stops him from stun locking me consistently. Get off me. So then, let's get into a slightly more numerous fight over here. We put up Force Barrier like this and stand close to them. The crowd control does have its uses. It is very much a prop line class, but even so, it is satisfying. It just feels more impressive on Sorcerer because of electricity. Lightning is much more impressive. Anyhow, abandon this spec. We're going to have to replay, position everything. Go into balance. Technically, Saber Strike is the very first ability you get, but as a Sage you're never going to be in a close range to use it, so I set Disturbance, or Telekinetic Burst, to be my... Oh dear! Someone's companion decided to come help out with the fight for a bit. How many times do I have to kill you before you stop coming back? Okay, back to me putting everything in its proper place. Actually, I feel like that's usually how I put it anyway. But yeah, dot class. Let's go. The thing is with Force Quake is that it does stun weak enemies, but it's a 30% chance for that stun, so it's quite easy for them to shoot back at you or just run up and hit you and reduce the time that you have to channel it. That's what pushback is basically. The thing is, while champions are strong enough to properly show off how the class and how the rotation works out and get your bearings on it, they also spend the whole time crowd controlling you, so you've got no time to figure it out. So you've got no... It screws up your rotation all the time anyway. The heal spec, the only way I've ever really played this class. So, Kaizen, you're a tank again. Have fun. This is a lot less interesting than the mercenary healer. Let's be honest. It's just spam Force Quake over and over. And then throw out a Mind Crush so you deal some more drop damage. On the upside, we do have this character over here who needs to be beaten down again. Ooh, this is gonna be fun. We use Restoration to get him out of the Force of Whirlwind or Lift or whatever it was that she put down. I didn't have time to check. I didn't assign any utilities, did I? Why knock him back if you're just going to pull him back again? Nope. The thing is, the crowd control, enemies putting down a crowd control or a sleep, aside from the fact that it means that they're instantly going to zoom in on you, but it also has a tendency to reduce the threat of who they're hitting. So it can actually be pretty hard for tanks to hold aggro against an enemy that's constantly crowd hitting them with stuns or sleeps. As a player, this means that you absolutely want to keep using if you're in a dungeon boss or something that keeps spamming those effects, then you need to keep using your taunts to get them back on you before they start hitting someone fragile. Like the healer. because my force is getting low, I want to do some conveyance healing trances. Sorry about that. I accidentally clicked out. It closed the game, and that ended the recording. So before anything really bad happens, I should probably close it out. But yeah, the Jedi Sage. It's not a very interesting class mechanically for me, but it's reliable at least. And it does have the niche as the only person able to get rid of force effects. Either way, until next time guys, take care. We'll see you all around.